We Are ND Nation podcast, a new era of Irish football with your host, me, Evan J. Thomas, and my new co-host, Dennis Stover, as we will bring you special guests throughout the season. We will go deep with your Irish football coverage in a way that you haven't seen or heard before. Dennis and Evan are just two best friends, lifelong Irish fans, bringing you the best Notre Dame football coverage, analysis, and our opinions on a weekly basis. You can watch or listen to the We Are ND Nation podcast on YouTube every Friday during the season on wearendnation.com. Follow us on the socials. We are ND Nation. Go Irish. All right, let's rock and roll, Irish fans. This week's We Are ND Nation podcast, we will have our takes on this past weekend's 44-24 victory at Syracuse, our preview and predictions of the huge matchup this weekend against number 5 Clemson Tigers as they come into South Bend, our Name That Former ND Players segment. I am Evan J. Thomas. With me always is my host, Dennis Stover. But to kick off, I got to make this introduction like you wouldn't believe. So I'm honored to introduce our special guest today, and his trophy case has to be stacked. So we have the starting nose tackle on the 1988 Notre Dame National Championship team, the 1990 Lombardi Award winner as the nation's top college lineman, the MVP of the 1991 Orange Bowl. He was enshrined into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2007, drafted in the second round of the 1991 NFL Draft by the Chicago Bears. He's the host of the Super 16 Poll Show, which you can check out on his YouTube channel. God, I'm so excited to welcome to the We Are ND Nation podcast, the one and only great of Notre Dame, Chris Zorich.
And that's an awesome introduction. I like that. I mean, I would like to hire you as my hype man. That's awesome.
I could do this every day. I mean, if you want to do that at your, when you do your tailgate, I could bring you up anytime you want to. So there you go.
I love it. So
how you doing? What's new with you?
Good. Actually, I'm really excited about the season, and I know folks have kind of talked about how crazy it was, and it kind of brushed it off a little bit. But I'm a huge fan of adversity and seeing what adversity can do for your team or as an individual. And I think we've had a chance to kind of see what happens when you perform well against a really good team and you lose a game, and then you turn around and you lay a complete egg against an unknown team. So I think having a chance to kind of experience that and kind of the ups and downs of the season, I'm really excited to kind of see where the Irish are now.
All right, so we're going to just go with our first reactions of Notre Dame beating ranked Syracuse at Syracuse 44-24. After seeing the complete game, Chris, what is your take on how they kind of played throughout the full game? Dennis and I go texting back and forth every game day, so he and I have a lot of interesting insights as well. But I want to hear yours first.
No, I'm sure. Do you want the X-rated version or the version?
Go X-rated. So here's the thing: you can swear here, so feel free.
Well, yeah. I mean, just as you talked about with Dennis, I have some buddies that I kind of text back and forth and call as well, and a lot of it is like, what the hell? What the F? I mean, all this stuff is kind of crazy, and a lot of these are former players that played on the 88 team. So we're all kind of like, what's he doing? What about this run? Oh, I could have done that. And so you get a bunch of old 50, 55-year-old guys talking shit on a text chain is absolutely hilarious. But the idea that there were some good points in the game, but one of the things that I've yet to see, which Alabama does, Clemson does, Georgia does, is really kind of having a chance to put away a team. I mean, take that boot and put it on their neck and just leave it on there. And unfortunately, the Irish have not had a chance to do that.
And I was going to say, I'm going to have Dennis go next because he and I go back. And like I said, Dennis has been saying, and you're going to say it right now, full game. Speak.
Yeah, I said it right before you came on, Chris. They can't put a complete game together. They were close. I think at halftime I texted them and I was like, that might have been the best half of the season for them. Granted, Pyne he's still not. I think, like I said, I think Pyne has met his. I think he's at his ceiling. I don't think we'll get much else out of him. I really don't. He can't push the ball downfield. Guys are open. He's missing them. he doesn't make his progressions fast enough. I don't know. And maybe even Tommy, I think Tommy is maybe at this point, like the first time he yelled at him and lit him up, it worked. But now maybe that approach, if he's still getting on him, maybe it's not working for the kid and he's shutting down. I don't know. Maybe he's like pressing or pushing too much, like, he's stressed or something. And he's just sometimes he just doesn't look comfortable in the pocket.
And if you look at that third quarter right after halftime, we were both going, what happened to the run game? Because that run game was hitting.
Well, they went back to it in the fourth, obviously. I don't know why Tommy gets off the game plan the way he does. He gets too cute and just like run the damn football. You have 3 running backs.
Yeah. And Pyne finishes in the game. I have the stats right here in front of me. 9 for 19, 116 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Like you said, Tommy Rees kind of changed that game plan after halftime and went more with the pass. And you could just tell that Pyne wasn't comfortable at all because he kept rolling out. He kept either getting sacked or just throwing the ball or just trying to run. But yeah, he just didn't look comfortable there at all. But then they went back to the run and they finished.
And they put him away, that was nice. Backing up what Chris was saying, they really do need to just put a team away, with some bad intentions, lay them on the mat. I don't know.
And how are you seeing how Rees is working with the offense, Chris? What are you seeing in terms of the game plan, especially this past weekend?
Well, they have improved. I mean, we went from watching them against Ohio State kind of to play, not to lose the game. You could really never do that. So you kind of have that situation, and then you see what he's done against Syracuse. Has there been improvement? Yes, there has. But, I mean, there has been improvement. But as a whole, I mean, we're all expecting more. Even though the quarterback isn't the type of quarterback they wanted going into the season, the idea is that if you're this mastermind offensive guru, then let's see something.
Yeah, but like I said at the beginning, the running game was just, they went off. I mean, you had estimated 20 carries, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. Diggs had 20 carries, 85 yards. Total offense, 56 carries, 246 yards, 3 TDs, 4.4 yards per carry. I mean, that's what works.
It was the best game too the O-line has played. I think the offensive line played probably the best game. If you take, if you want to give the game ball I'd give it to the whole offensive line, honestly, because they were holding blocks and they were really muscling. I mean, granted, Syracuse's line is a little smaller, but still, I mean, we didn't push around Stanford. I'm still hurting over that one.
Yeah, you and me both, Dennis. I mean, the idea that Stanford could come in here, and I think their streak was they hadn't beaten a Division I team. I think it's
11 games or 12 games. Yeah.
Excuse me, sorry about that. But the idea that we kind of play down our competition is just so frustrating. I mean, you look at what happened with a ranked BYU and then a ranked Syracuse, and then it's how could you lose against Stanford?
Yeah, and North Carolina. I mean, North Carolina's only lost 1 game now, and so they're back in the top 5.
And I was going to ask Chris, and Dennis and I talk about this too. What is the deal with them playing so well, not at home, but stuck at home? What's going on with that? Is it stress? Is it, just trying, like you said, they're playing down to their competition at home. What's going on with that?
Well, I would really have to say it's probably distractions on both the coaches and players' part. The idea that you're playing better away is just mind-boggling to me. I mean, you have a rabid fan base, and you have kind of all the hype that goes around when you're at home, and you're actually playing better away. I mean, that's kind of scary. And for one, I mean, I would have to blame the head coach, Marcus Freeman, for that issue because, I mean, you're supposed to welcome being at home. You're supposed to be excited about having a chance to play in front of your fans, your family and everything. But I think it may be a case where they're looking at it where it's kind of overwhelming, so to speak. I think what happened, and I've said this on my podcast, that the idea that they went from almost beating an Ohio State team in the first game, or they were leading going into the fourth quarter, and they didn't think they'd actually be there, right? I mean, honestly, Ohio State's a great team.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame had a new head coach, new quarterback. There's so many things that everything was stacked against them. And then all of a sudden they go into halftime with the lead and they're like, whoa, we can actually do this. So that's where the whole kind of playing not to lose came in. And then I just really think that they were honestly full of themselves after that game. They only dropped a couple spots in the rankings, and they really thought they were that good. And then they had a Marshall team that come into their house that wanted it more than they did.
Yep.
And regardless of who comes in your house, I don't care if it was Stanford or Clemson or Marshall, they should have taken care of business, but they didn't. And so we talk about the offensive line, defensive line on that game. I mean, it was atrocious. I mean, there were defensive linemen who were in the end zone kind of on their backs with the Marshall's offensive lineman on top of them. So that's just really unacceptable. And so I think it's kind of, to answer your question, I really think they need to kind of treat the home games like they're doing with the away games, which is kind of a business trip, as opposed to being able to spend time with their family and friends. Maybe you just seclude them now from like Thursday on or something like that. I mean, you have to find something that works because you're playing a great opponent in Clemson, and you want to mimic that away game atmosphere. If you're having your best games in your away games, you got to mimic that atmosphere at home.
I was just going to say almost the same thing before you even got there. The fact that, to me, the fans that actually travel or at other stadiums aren't at the home games all the time. And as Dennis alluded to me a few times, it's also the atmosphere of the stadium once they start losing too.
So it gets so quiet. I said the one game a couple weeks ago, I said, what is this place, a nursing home? I was like, it was so, there was no enthusiasm. I'm like, these fans are terrible. I don't know what's going on.
I mean, the Vegas game, the Syracuse game, North Carolina, all the Notre Dame fans, I mean, they're just going nuts. Obviously, Chris, you see it kind of as they go too. I mean, it's like a different experience when you're on the road compared at home.
And it's not necessarily supposed to be that way. I mean, I've been at all the home games this year, and the crowds are loud, but Dennis, to your point, after a certain point, they're not loud anymore.
Right.
And, a lot of that has to do with the age of the folks that are there. The student body is those only 10,000. So when you start looking at all the factors that kind of go into who's attending the games, then maybe you realize, well, maybe these might not be like your rabid, crazy, diehard fans. They may be a little older. And then when you talk about the price point of the ticket, older folks can afford tickets a little bit better. So then all of a sudden you're saying, okay, well, who was our target audience?
Well, I remember the last game I think Evan and I went to was 2013 SC. I think we were by the student section, and then the student section was in front of us, and then so we were standing. That's what it was. We were right behind them, and then there was a couple people behind, and they're asking us to sit down. And I'm like, I am not sitting down. This is USC Notre Dame, and we haven't beat them in how long? You're out of your mind,
right?
And that's and again, that was almost 10 years ago. But still, that's what I feel it is now. It's just like, it's so quiet sometimes. I'm like, what's wrong with you guys?
Yeah.
And then it's interesting. I was fortunate enough to actually spent some time working in the Notre Dame athletic department, and had the fortunate opportunity to be on the football scheduling committee. And, I had no idea what went into actually scheduling our opponents until I sat on this committee. And the idea that, they want to find good competition in November is really challenging. Mm-hmm. And then with all these super conferences kind of attracting all these larger schools, these big names, and then all of a sudden, you want to find somebody attractive that you will actually sell tickets for, right? Because who's going to want to go to Marshall in November? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So being able to schedule your better teams later in the year at home is important. And so that kind of goes along with what you're talking about, Dennis, as far as the fans. And then I think their biggest fear is having NBC take the camera and pan the whole stadium and then find empty seats.
Yeah, well, there were some empty seats at the UNLV game. They saw on the one in the, I forget what direction, but the far corner away from the tunnel, it was pretty empty. I don't know if that's reserved for UNLV fans or not, but there's some empty seats. I have yet to been to the new stadium since it's been updated, if you will.
No, you haven't. That's
yeah,
right.
because I've been in New York, so I got to get to a game. But it just doesn't seem. I watched the other day. What was it? The Snow Bowl, the '90 game, and that place is nuts. Like the old Notre Dame Stadium.
Right.
Not one person is sitting, and they're just everyone's losing their mind, and it's just like we should have that.
Right.
Every game, no matter who we're playing. But yes, the ACC scheduling thing, I think that's hurt our home schedule a lot because the ACC is a terrible conference, and we get maybe two games a year from them that are, we got Clemson this year, which is nice. So, but yeah, the home schedule is terrible.
Yeah, except for Clemson, there's really nobody out there that really is enticing to go to because UNLV, Marshall, Cal, Stanford, yeah, at the time.
And Boston College, right?
Still have Boston College, which I should hopefully be there too. So, yeah, those are the home games except for Clemson, which is number 5. So,
I just want to, before we say, I just got to ask because this is, I think, a perfect question to ask Chris. Chris, do you think ND should be in a conference?
That's a really kind of an interesting question. And being an former athletic director and having a chance to kind of spend time working at Notre Dame, I kind of see it from both sides.
Right.
And the idea of kind of a rabid, crazy fan wanting them to kind of play the best football they can and joining the best conference they can is a different conversation if you're an administrator or the athletic director. And at the end of the day, this is not about football. It's about the actual university. And so you have to find a conference where the mission of the university aligns well with the other schools in the conference. So that's why you'll never see Notre Dame join the SEC, right? Because the idea of the academia, maybe not as far as research, although there's some great institutions in the SEC, it's just they're not like-minded. Okay. So when you look at the conferences they might be like-minded with, I mean, obviously you have the relationship with the ACC, but at the end of the day, as you mentioned, Dennis, the ACC isn't that strong in athletics. And so what they would want to do is find a great academic institution in one side, but then also have the athletic prowess on the other. Now, at the end of the day, it's not up to the athletic director, it's up to the board. And so, the idea would be to have the president and the athletic director convince, a board of 30 people that it's important for us to join a conference on the academic side, because athletically, I mean, we haven't joined one since, and it's been, 1842 since Notre Dame started. And they've had the opportunities over the years, but they've always declined. And everybody says, well, they just want to keep the money. That may be part of it, but the question is, if any of those other schools had a chance to be as independent as Notre Dame was, would they be? And of course, the answer is yes.
Of course.
So now, when you look at, however, the latest Big Ten media contract, they're talking about schools maybe getting anywhere from like 80 to 100 million a year.
Yeah.
Now,
every school.
Right, exactly. So now you're talking about Rutgers and Maryland and Northwestern getting 100 million, and I believe the Notre Dame conference, or excuse me, the Notre Dame contract with NBC is supposed to be around 70 to 75 million. So the idea would be, okay, if they're getting more money, is that attractive? And then at the end of the day, you can say, well, if it's only 25 million, we could probably get that from some of our alums, and maybe we wouldn't have to join the conference yet. But the one thing folks aren't talking about is the ability for these super conferences to lock Notre Dame out.
Right. Well, I'm sure
is
some
the
of them might
biggest
try
issue.
to do that.
Right.
Yeah, it's I say from a perspective of if we never play another game, obviously if they move to a 12-team format playoff, then we'll be fine. But if it, how long is that going to be? And then will it get to maybe it will only be 8? I don't know. I don't know how set in stone that is. And then but I'm thinking from a 13-game standpoint, because Notre Dame has to run the table at this point to get into the playoff. A one-loss Notre Dame would not get in ever. I mean, unless the one loss was to a number 1 team at the time, and it was, game of the century kind of atmosphere, then maybe. But I think that's my only reason. Because I've been cheering for Notre Dame, obviously watching you.
You've been watching for about 100 years, huh?
Well, we were in high school when you played, so.
Great. I feel a lot better now because you have a gray beard, I believe, Evan. And,
that I do.
You great. So you were in high school when I was playing.
Oh yeah, we were
in high school. So
I'm
were
gonna be 47. It's 47. I'm gonna
great.
be 47.
Yeah, I feel a lot better now. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're only
you look better than us. So
you look 6 years older than me. So there you go. So you're on that. We're actually going to take a quick break, but before that, every week we do this little fun name that former ND player. So what I do is I give Dennis a bunch of stats on a player when they played, and then after we come from break, he is going to try to reveal who it is. So I will reveal, but he will try to guess. So here we go. Dennis, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. This tight end played at Notre Dame from 1989 to 1992. He has a total of 28 receptions in his career, 360 yards receiving, 5 career touchdowns. Any idea who that might be? Don't say who it is.
I'm not going to say it. I think I can remember the name. Yeah. I think I got it, but so I might get the players confused.
We're going to take just a quick little hiatus. We'll be right back. We're going to go into our predictions and what to expect from the Clemson game this coming week. All here, we got Dennis Stover. I'm Evan J. Thomas, and the one and only Chris Zorich here on the We Are ND Nation podcast. Be right back. The E2B2 podcast featuring father and son duo Evan J. Thomas and
Brandon Thomas.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
As we discuss our lives,
life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Pop culture and some of the best movies.
John Wick.
Oh yeah, and some duds. Listen to the E2B2 podcast on BadassProductions1.com in the on-demand section under E2B2.
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
Or listen to Spotify, Google Podcasts, or almost anywhere you can get your podcasts.
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet, but your kids are gonna love it.
Oh yeah, and Brandon, guess what?
No.
Yeah, we get it. You are my father.
All right, welcome back to the We Are ND Nation podcast. Evan J. Thomas, Dennis Stover, and the one and only Hall of Famer Chris Zorich with us today on the We Are ND Nation podcast. Right before the break, I gave Dennis the stats for the name that former ND player. So I'm going to do it once again, and hopefully he can guess who it is. So, tight end, played from 1989 to 1992. So he played with Chris, obviously. Wonder if Chris knows who this is without even me giving the stats.
What was it again? You said 89?
89 to 92. So he was a former teammate. 28 catches, 360 yards, 5 total touchdowns. Dennis, who is that former ND player?
Oh, man. I got my year mixed up. I was going to say this one. I think you got me good with this one, man.
I usually do.
Again, five touchdowns, 80. What was his stats again?
I just clicked out of it. It was like 28, 360, and 5 touchdowns.
Is his son a current player in the NFL?
Oh, that's a good
Dennis,
one. I was going to say.
Come on, Dennis. You got it. Now. You got to guess it now.
Hey,
I was going to say.
Go ahead. I'll let you throw the name out there first, and then.
Oh, it's McBride, isn't it?
Okay, the other guest who I've been trying to get on with Chris is Irv Smith.
Irv Smith.
Well, I was gonna say,
Yeah,
how many former players have children in the NFL? You know, I mean,
Right.
that's kind of
Yeah, right now,
But
especially.
it was driving me nuts because I'm like, why didn't he come to Notre Dame? Because he's at Bama, right?
Well,
No,
it's kind of an interesting story. Actually, I had him on my podcast and we talked about it. And it's funny, he tried so hard to get Notre Dame to look at his son. And at the time, they just didn't do it. And I mean, he called up a bunch of people over there. They didn't even acknowledge him. So then he goes to Alabama. He wins a national championship, plays for another one, and gets drafted in 3 years in the second round.
Unbelievable.
And is currently in the NFL.
yeah.
How did Brian Kelly let that slip?
Right, exactly.
Unfortunately,
Holy
though,
smoke.
Irv Smith Jr. is out for 8 to 10 weeks. That's why the Vikings just traded for T.J. Hawkinson.
Oh, I don't know what
I
happened.
couldn't think of the name. I was thinking
I
of
think it was his ankle or something, and it said 8 to 10 weeks he's out. So
wow.
I'll have to send Irv a little message and be like, "Hey, man, sorry to hear about your kid. I know you know him more than I do, but I've been conversing with him off and on. So yeah, it's a shot for the kid to be playing, but yeah, unfortunately they did trade for another tight end. So Dennis unfortunately got this one wrong. Stumped you, unfortunately.
Yeah, you got me good on that one. I kept thinking it was who caught the game who caught the first touchdown in I forget in West Virginia, the national championship game. It was McBride, wasn't it?
Derek Brown.
Derek Brown. That's why I kept going to Derek Brown.
That's what I was gonna say, but then he said 1989, and
that's why
Derek was.
I kept thinking it was Derek
on the
Brown.
team. So yeah,
that's who I kept thinking.
Okay.
A good one, Evan.
So we're going to move forward to this weekend's Notre Dame versus Clemson Tigers game, November 5th, 6:30
Oh, there it is.
p.m. on NBC. Well, at least 6:30 my time. I think 7:30 Dennis's time. So let's see. I got the stats right in front of me on what to expect. So Notre Dame is a 4-point underdog. And,
they're only giving Clemson 4. Wow.
Yeah, only 4 points, even though Clemson.
How many did Syracuse have? Do you remember?
I thought it was 2.5. It wasn't much.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't much. And the over-under, this is crazy, 44.5.
Really?
Wow, really? They think, well.
And the teams are putting up, Clemson's putting up 37.1 and Notre Dame at 28.4. So they think the defense is going to be playing.
Well, and it's interesting because Syracuse, I forgot what play it was, but Syracuse should have won the game that they played against Clemson.
Yeah. They should have.
They should have. It was the last second play that they won, right?
I think they went up, but Klubnik, I think it was their defense. They threw a pick or some. There was some. I think it was Schrader or whatever messed up at the end, I believe, because they had to bring in Clay Klubnik. So maybe that'll happen. But then I don't want this kid to come in and have the freshman glory game, for Clemson at Notre Dame Stadium.
I think a lot of people also forget that Clemson also had a bye week last week. So
yeah, they're coming off.
Spend a little bit more time on the Irish this week.
Yep. Yeah. I hope Al Golden is ready to call a game because I'm a little concerned about sometimes.
So I was just going to ask, Dennis, what are you expecting from this week's game against Clemson? I mean, how do you?
I hope Tommy doesn't get cute. I think they should get rid of the phone book playbook and just. Man, I'm loving the I formation. Run the veer, give it to me. They had the one where they could fake the dive to estimate, and then, I know he's not the quickest, but he could definitely run an option to Tyree or something. And it was open. I mean, he could have ran for days, and they haven't seen it. It's just a wrinkle. It's just like play football. And please don't do a jet sweep on the goal line again. God,
when I saw the information, I got a little excited. I was like, "Wow, this is going old school. This is great."
And they handed to the fullback. I was losing my mind. It was great.
Yeah, that was like 90s football all over again, right?
Sign me up, man. That's all day.
And Chris, what are you expecting from this coming week's game? I mean, offense. Do you think they're going to come out passing, rushing? What's going to happen here?
Well, I would like for them to be consistent, and I think that, and as we talked about before with the Syracuse game, I mean, go with what you know. And it's really interesting when you look at kind of where this Notre Dame team is and kind of where the Clemson program is in general. and they have a lot to prove. And I think we're going to get their best. And I think Notre Dame's going to have to play a perfect game and hope that they're able to cause some fumbles and we really kind of create some turnovers because we're talking about a top 5 team in the country coming into an unranked Notre Dame team and coming into their house and with a bye that they had. And so the idea would be, what is it? What can Notre Dame do to be successful? And I think the hardest thing that I hope they don't do is beat themselves, because the idea would be that you have, really kind of once in a chance to kind of do this, right? So we beat ranked teams, we faltered against Ohio State, but you want to talk about kind of a game that you could really set the tone, not only for the rest of this season, but also next year. This is the game you have to do it. And I just think we have to play a perfect game, and we haven't played a perfect game yet. So that's really what's making me nervous. But more importantly, I think that the offensive line has to take over and really dominate, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's what they've been able to do in some of their games. They get to do it consistently. And then at that point, when you're able to run the ball down someone's throat, then you can dictate what you're doing on offense.
There you go.
Yeah, I bet on Saturday some of those knucklehead pundits on whatever the programs, the Foxes and the ESPNs, will say Notre Dame will have to pass the ball because, Clemson's front is Clemson. But you know what? Just we have a really good offensive line, and just who cares if Clemson can stop the run? That's we run the ball, be physical.
All right. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go to quick break. We're going to come back. Going to restart this over. We're going to give our prediction of the game. Stay right here, right on the We Are ND Nation podcast. Dennis Stover, Evan J. Thomas, Chris Zorich, back with you here in about 30 seconds.
Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Central. Join me, Evan J. Thomas, for an hour of new rock and metal on the Rock Hard with Evan J. Thomas Show on the Badass Radio Network. Blast that shit.
Okay, We Are ND Nation podcast. Evan J. Thomas, Dennis Stover, and our epic guest of the week, Chris Zorich. Holy shit.
Man, this is guest of the season. I don't know. Lee Becker was pretty special.
Lee Becker.
National champion.
Kelly. And I know Lisa Kelly. She's amazing as well. She was our last guest that we had.
Yeah, she was fire too.
Then I'm in good company because Lisa is awesome. I was fortunate enough to be featured on the back cover of her new cookbook. So
that's what she said. Excited. And I'm like, holy cow, that's crazy that you actually did that for her. That's pretty sweet.
I want to be on her cookbook. I cook.
Yeah, he's a chef.
There you go. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, now you know. So let's do this. Before we even get into our predictions, Chris, you're doing this whole thing next year with Notre Dame and going to Ireland. Tell us about it. What's going on here?
Well, we're very excited. We have a chance to kind of grab a bunch of former players. And actually, Irv Smith is going to be one of them. And we're going to go out there and really kind of, I want to say tear up the town, but the idea was just to kind of hang out with folks and go to just these amazing, amazing golf courses. And I'm not a big golfer, so it's not fair for me I don't want to throw out like pars or anything like that. But the idea is that you'll have a chance to really kind of spend some time with a bunch of great players, but more importantly, have a chance to do that in a golf setting. And I've seen some of the scenery. It's just absolutely terrific. And then you'll have me riding around in the golf cart smoking cigars. So.
So where can we find these packages and like who's all going to be there? Can you even say who's going to be there?
So yeah, I can. Here, let me see if I can pull it up. Let me see.
Because I know I was sharing it actually on Twitter this past week. I saw it popping up with your thing. And you mentioned it in the email as well. So I'm like, yeah, let's talk about it because that's my bucket list is go to Ireland to see Notre Dame play.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah. Chris, you got a command center there or something. Are you talking to NASA? I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, you have no idea.
Dennis, I got 3 screens I'm looking at too. So
man, I got this shitty iPad with the jersey hung up on a nail behind me.
That's awesome. God, that's hilarious. That is
It works. It works. It's all that matters.
Hey, I'm a real fan. Okay, I don't need to paint my face to show it.
Right. You know what? I can't pull it up right now. I'm sorry about that, guy.
No, it's okay. And I was
Maybe you
gonna
can
say,
edit that part out.
no, it's all good.
That was good. That was good comedy.
Dennis and I are going to kind of give a little feedback on, like, he actually got me into watching Notre Dame back in the early 90s when we were high school together. So that's kind of how we.
I've been
that's
watching
awesome.
them for, I mean, a long time. Like when I could first, I think in '80. I think it was like around Jerry Faust's like last couple of years.
Okay.
I was like 7 or 8 then, and then it took off. And then I started playing football in high school, and the coaches always made references. And then I just obviously happened to be in the glory days of the last time Notre Dame was, in the top 5 consistently. God damn, man, what a great.
And
Anyway,
then lucky me, I get to meet Dennis in our sophomore year of high school, and then
Nice.
afterwards he moved around, and then we became roommates a couple different times. But the
Yeah, we've
first
known
time
each
we
other
were roommates,
quite a long time.
he'd
That's
be watching the early Saturday games when they actually used to play at like 11:30, like last
Right.
week. And we would do the watch the first half, get a pizza, fall asleep at halftime, come back in the second half and watch the rest of the game. So
Yeah, a lot of memories. The biggest one I think is we weren't watching the game together, but I think we had talked. It was the Phantom clipping call against Colorado. And I remember bawling my eyes out at the end of that fucking game, and being super upset too, because how could they just call that flag? I was, because I remember before it's like, oh, there's Rocket, he can run it back, and sure enough, there he goes.
I was fortunate enough to actually talk to Rocket about that. So on my podcast, if you want to check it out, just go to youtube.com/Zorich50, and Rocket talks about that and how, and I didn't even know that he did this, but apparently he pointed to the sidelines to Lou and saying that, he's going to return it. And, he returned it. And it was
he called the shot.
Yeah, it was amazing.
damn.
Absolutely amazing.
All right, so
This
is on your. Is it on which podcast is it? Is it just your regular one?
So I apologize. Well, I have 2 podcasts, but I have one that goes during the college football season, which is the Super 16 poll show with me. And me and my producer, we go over the top 16 teams in the country. And actually, that's normally on Monday nights, but because of some arrangements, we have to do it on Tuesday night this week. But it's a great show. And I mean, I love college football, so it gives me an opportunity just to kind of brag and talk about how awesome all these hundreds of players are and all these other teams. And I'm not a homer, although I love Notre Dame, and I have a little segment talking about how Notre Dame did that week. I mean, if Notre Dame doesn't deserve to be there, they don't.
Right.
And so some people had Notre Dame in the first week of the season, they had them ranked as high as, I want to say 5 or something like that. No. I had them like at 10 or 11.
Yep. Actually, I think Dennis and I said the same.
Yeah, and then when they lost to Ohio State, they were out of my poll. And everybody's like, "Oh, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Look, if you lose, then you have to be subject to some scrutiny."
Yep.
And so the idea is that you got to earn that right back. But I thought it was shocking actually that even though they beat a ranked BYU team, I didn't have them. They didn't move up that far, but a lot of people said that they should have. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the whole season, and they shot the bed against Marshall. So do they deserve to be in the top 16 after they beat a number 16 BYU? And I said no.
Right.
No.
And BYU's
I have that show. So I have that show, but then I also have a show that we did where I interview former players, and then I had Marcus Freeman on a couple times as well. And just a great idea of getting kind of great conversations. And it's interesting because folks will say, well, Chris, they really open up to you. And I was like, well, I share a locker room with a lot of these guys. So, they know me. And then even guys who are either younger or older than me who I didn't play with, we've dressed in the same locker room. We've worn the same helmet before. So they kind of understand that as well.
By the way, if you could ever get me to get Marcus Freeman on, let me know. I mean, just asking a friend to a friend if possible.
I heard that.
I want to ride in his Ferrari.
Oh yeah, you saw that. I saw that too. That's pretty nice. I don't think I could fit, but I saw that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, meeting you, those hands that you have, man, holy shit, you like engulfed mine. But then again, I got small hands, so that was crazy. All right, so let's try to get back a little bit to this game that we're going to see on
We got
Saturday.
score predictions, right?
We have score predictions coming up. I'm going to go first just because I want Chris to go last. I'm going to have Dennis go second. So I have the final score, and I know I'm kind of being a homer here, but I've been pretty good on actually having been close to the numbers of the final score. I actually nailed
impressive.
one. What was it? The Cal game. I nailed that one spot on.
Yeah.
So this one I have Notre Dame winning 37-34.
Wow, you picked them to win?
Interesting.
Wow, 37-34.
I think they're going to finally come out of that shell at home. And like Chris said, hopefully Freeman saw how they play away from home to bring that energy back to the stadium and see what happens. But I'm going to estimate Michael Mayer. I mean, Halloween's over, but I still call him Michael Myers, but that's okay. But I think he's going to actually put up a little bit better than the 3 and 30 or 54 that he did last week. But yeah, they went with the running game. But yeah, I'm expecting more of the big offense. Dennis, I'm going to have you go next with your prediction.
Okay, so unless they do anything short of going to the airport, getting the plane up, go around Lake Michigan and land back in South Bend, they're going to get smoked. They're going to get smoked. I think Clemson. I think Will Shipley's going to rush him, who was once this close to coming to Notre Dame. I think Ugo. I can't. DJ. I think DJ. I think is going to have a really good game because let's not forget what he did last time at Notre Dame Stadium. He lit him up.
Was it 500 yards or was it 400?
Yeah,
damn near.
Yeah, it was like 480 something. I think Dennis froze up there. Dennis, you live?
See, it's the Notre Dame gods that are punishing him. They realize that this is a Notre Dame show, and he should be rooting for the Irish.
It's just funny seeing his frozen face right there.
Right.
So hopefully he comes back on shortly. But Chris, I'm going to have you then go next on your prediction. What do you think this game is looking like?
I totally understand where you're coming from, and I understand what a frozen Dennis is talking about as well. But do I think they have a chance? Yes. And so I'm not going to give you a score because I don't have a score. I just want them to win. And I know that sounds kind of trite, but the idea that they can accomplish this if they believe in themselves, if they work hard enough, and understand that this is a chance of a lifetime. I mean, the reason why you come to Notre Dame are for games like this, when you have an opportunity to kind of show how great your team is, but also play one of the best teams in the country. So I think that they can win. Now, the question is, will they? And again, as I said before, they're going to have to play a perfect game.
Yeah.
And Clemson, they've had a whole another week to prepare for Notre Dame. So I think that's going to be a challenge for Notre Dame. But as I said before, Notre Dame hasn't played a perfect game yet. So I think they can beat them? Yes. Will they? I think they can if they can get that perfect game going.
So do you have a final score for the game, or are you not?
I do not.
Okay.
I just want to win. One more point than other team.
That's really all you ask for, isn't it? Just
That's
one more
all.
point.
At this point, when you play the number 5 team in the country, all you want to do is, I don't care if it's a safety or field goal, whatever it is, extra point. You just want one more point.
One more point, and also just don't get embarrassed at home. That's my main thing, is especially with this team, because I mean they've already lost to Marshall, they've already lost to Stanford, and it's just one of those where it's like you're playing number 5. They could beat you 56-12. You never know, and hopefully it just won't happen. So hopefully Notre Dame comes out with a win. When Dennis is trying to text me saying he can't connect and it won't let him back in, so I don't know what the heck happened to his recording here. But I was hoping.
Well, see, it's the Irish football gods, man. They heard him. He said as soon as he said that Notre Dame's going to lose, it happened.
So here, let me do this. Let me see if I can connect with him on on a call real quick, and then that way we can get what he was going to finish with.
Sure.
Hey, there we go. So we got Dennis Stover on the phone right now.
I'm calling in.
Yes. So
I'm the 13th caller. I'm the winner.
There you go. There you go.
I think Notre Dame to score 38-10. I don't know what happened, guys. My Wi-Fi's good. I'm not tech savvy. I apologize. I just can't log on for some reason. So
Dennis has them losing 38-10.
Interesting.
Okay, and then Chris, just remind Dennis what you said to me about.
So I just talked about how I not really care about score. I just want them to have one more point. And we're just talking about how Notre Dame has to play a perfect game in order for them to be successful. But it's going to be kind of tough because Clemson had an extra week to prepare for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, there you go.
However, I'm still on the show because I didn't say Notre Dame was going to lose. So the football gods, the Notre Dame football gods are punishing you, Dennis, for going against the Irish.
I think you're right. I mean, how could I do that in front of a Notre Dame legend?
There you go. See? That's what happens, man.
Yeah, that's I did a bad thing there, man. I'm gonna have to go
Live and learn. Live and learn.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, what is this? I don't even think this is the first game you've actually picked Notre Dame to lose. Or, you picked them to lose against Ohio State.
My early prediction.
See, and I didn't.
See?
Slouching. They're really good. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough one.
Well, the cool thing about the rest of this video is I'm just going to put up that frozen picture of Dennis and just leave it there for the rest of the show. Because you froze up and it was fantastic. And I'm like, I can keep that on there. So.
Don't apologize to me, man. Apologize to the Notre Dame guys, man. They're the one punishing you.
So anything that you'd like to promote before we go, Chris? Anything, obviously your Notre Dame stuff for next year at Ireland, your podcast, feel free. Tell us.
Sure. Well, we actually did this exciting thing. This was my wife's idea, but we have an Airbnb at Notre Dame. And it's really cool because we provide what's called the Zorich experience. You get helmet, jerseys, football, all types of signed memorabilia. Have a chance to hang out with our guests. If anybody wants more information, they can just go to theminiclover.com. That's theminiclover.com, and all the information is there.
Awesome. I'll put up the link right at the bottom as well when we do this, when I put this up. So that way you can pick that out. I mean, is it like different rates that you have? Is it like obviously different games that the
sure? And then we're also doing it for if you just want to hang out in South Bend. So it's obviously going to be a different rate than during the football season, but you have the option to have the Zorich experience attached on to your stay at my place.
And I'm not going to tell all these people where your tailgate is, but you have an amazing tailgate out there. On game days, I got to hang out with you. Actually, not really hang out with you. I got to meet you and beg you to come onto my show, which you finally did.
And I'm on, so there you go.
So much. But you are here, and dude, it's been amazing having you on. Just getting your insight and actually being able to just see you work your magic, my man. So I appreciate that.
I tried. Thank you.
No problem. So again, Dennis Stover, Evan J. Thomas, our special guest, Chris Zorich. This is the We Are ND Nation podcast. You can follow us on the socials, We Are ND Nation, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, also on YouTube, and then our website, wearendnation.com. We also have a new t-shirt out, the We Are ND Nation t-shirt. You can find that on the website as well. So I got to get more made up. I only made like 2. I got to get those printed. So.
There you go. And hopefully you have a 3X in there for me.
I will. Okay, now I know the size. So you're a 3X. I thought you were like a 2X.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I even love you even more. Thank you.
I mean, I barely fit in this extra large. I feel like my arms are gonna pop out of it. But...
See, Evan, I love you even more. Thank you.
You're welcome, man.
You made my day.
So until next week, as Dennis and I always say, go Irish. Dennis, and fuck Michigan.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Go Irish.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it, man.
You got it. Thank you.
We Are ND Nation podcast, a new era of Irish football with your host, me, Evan J. Thomas, and my new co-host, Dennis Stover, as we will bring you special guests throughout the season. We will go deep with your Irish football coverage in a way that you haven't seen or heard before. Dennis and Evan are just two best friends, lifelong Irish fans, bringing you the best Notre Dame football coverage, analysis, and our opinions on a weekly basis. You can watch or listen to the We Are ND Nation podcast on YouTube every Friday during the season on wearendnation.com. Follow us on the socials. We are ND Nation. Go Irish.